With the abolition of slavery in the 1800s, whaling became the biggest industry in the world. And it wasn't just a matter of greed, it was a matter of necessity. Earlier, they did not have the chemical skills to change crude oil into very many useful products, and they did not have the huge petroleum distilleries to manufacture the products that they needed. This video contains some of the historical footage from 1933, along with current footage from what's left of Whangamumu whaling station, as well as the history of the area and some of the people that were involved. Hello and welcome to the Sailing My Magic channel. My name is Duke and I am solo sailing Magic, my 2015 Lagoon catamaran, around the world. If you hear some whistling and see some movement in the background right now, we're having a windstorm. So as we say, the wind is singing a lullaby and the waves are rocking you to sleep. But this episode I'm going to be examining the Whangamumu whaling station in northern New Zealand. I'm in northern New Zealand waiting out the cyclone season, and we'll continue to do videos of the interesting places in the area. The entrance at Whangamumu Bay is fairly narrow, and therefore it's a very well protected bay. It has very little waves and protected from 3 different sides. From here, the original whalers would launch their small boats to go out in the ocean. Today, on the right-hand side of the bay, you can see small remains of the whaling station. These are big vats that the early whalers used to store the year's worth of product until it was ready to sell. Whaling began here in 1844, but the first successes are not known. It wasn't until 1893 when the Cook brothers shifted their whaling operations over here that you have some history of what was going on. 1800s, 10 to 20 whales was a usual number of a season's catch. Each whale was worth about 100 pounds. The catch was increased by the purchase of a steam launch. By 1910, the station was transformed into a factory under Jaeger and Cook. The Hananui was built and purchased in England specifically for whaling. I'll talk more about the Hananui too at the end. In the beginning, the men would just row out in their small boats and harpoon the whales, but later on, when they started getting more industrialized, they would string a wire net in the water to trap the whales into a smaller area so that they could get closer to them to harpoon them. And finally, with the Hananui, they had a steamship with the harpoon. Whangamumu was about the only whaling station that was able to successfully catch whales using a net. They tried a rope net at first and the whale tore it apart, although they were able to eventually get in and harpoon it and take it. But the next set they tried was a wire net. It was actually several sections of wire net, and that way if the whale destroyed one, the other parts of the net still held together. And what they would do is they sunk eye bolts into certain rocks in the areas where the whales were known to go, and put the net up where the whale would run into it, and when the whale became tangled, then they could go in and harpoon it and take the whale. After the whales were harpooned, this is the slipway or slideway. They would slide the whales up onto the shore so that they could be processed. Please click on like and subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and it really helps me. So they would slide the whales up here for processing, and it involved cutting the blubber off the humpback whales. Then they'd have to render it to get the fat out. The fat was the most valuable part, but the entire animal was used. Now you see the vats there in the middle, and then the boiler. The boiler has those tubes going through the middle, And that's so that they could run different kinds of liquid, probably water to go the outside of the liquid, outside the tubes, and then the fat or oils going through the inner tubes, heat exchanger. Those bricks there were a tree that grew up through the fire brick that surrounded the boiler. So they would haul up these slabs of blubber and cut it into more manageable size pieces and throw it into the rendering vat. But you know, through all of this, the whales didn't always lose. There were times that the boat got knocked over and very few of these people could swim. The graveyards I noted before in earlier videos show a lot of people that drowned. Later on, they used the steamship with the harpoon in the front, and you might think that that's more barbaric, but in actual fact, that harpoon had an explosive head in it, and it killed the whale instantly, so there was a lot less suffering on the part of the whale. But it did increase their amount of whales they captured. This is the Hananui 2, the steamship, and that's the harpoon gun with one of the cook's sons playing with it. I hope none of you has the impression that the whalers were horrible people. This was terribly difficult work. They worked 60 hours a week for pennies. They were paid £1 per week if they caught a whale. If they didn't get paid. Every scrap of the animal was used. The meat was salted and put in barrels to be preserved and eaten later. The fat was rendered out into oil for lamps, soap, all sorts of products. The Great Depression after 1938-1939 killed off the whaling industry. There was an attempt to revive this plant in 1940, but it failed. The Hananui 2 steamship was supposed to come in during a night of thick fog. Instead, the captain became confused and ran it into a sandbank in Ryan Bay. A few bits of the old ship are left, but you cannot go in there as the peninsula has a fence across it to protect the blue penguins. Parts of the long hiking trail are also blocked off. You can't really see the penguins either since they come ashore at nighttime. Same with the kiwi birds, they're nocturnal. And this area is now a preserve. Please click on like and subscribe if you haven't already. It's totally free and it helps me to make more videos. And now it's time for the Sailor's Delight, the Sundowner. Enjoy your day and live your best life.